I left the hospital after my last night shift, just 15 minutes from home. But halfway across the bridge, I realized I wasn't alone. Someone, or something, was waiting for me in the fog. My name is Jerry, and this is what really happened that night. It happened in a quiet river town where the houses press close to the water and the hospital sits 2 blocks from the old steel bridge. The date was late November, a Sunday night sliding into Monday, the kind of cold that makes breath look like smoke. It happened to Jerry, 25, a nurse who finished the graveyard shift more often than anyone else because she never complained. It happened after she clocked out at 2:37 a.m., told the receptionist goodnight, and stepped into the empty street with her coat unbuttoned and her phone in her palm like a little, glowing compass. She always walked home. 15 minutes from St. Martin's ER to her apartment on the other side of the river, past the shuttered diner, the broken street lamp, the chain-link fence where the wind rasped candy wrappers along the sidewalk. The cameras in the ambulance bay caught her crossing the lot. Blink. Cold air. A stray cat slipping under a truck. She looked small in the frame, hood up, earbuds in, head tilted like she was listening to something behind the music. Her friend Claire texted, "You alive?" Jerry called instead. "I'm fine," she said, laugh light, voice hoarse from a long shift. "I'll be home in 10. I'm at the corner by the bridge." The audio timestamp later showed 2:41 a.m. A car went by, tires hissing over damp asphalt. Somewhere a river buoy clicked and clicked against its chain. Then Jerry said, "Hold on," and the call ended, not dropped but ended, as if she'd seen something and needed both hands free. The bridge is iron and old, with a narrow sidewalk and a rail that always feels too low. At night the river is a throat, taking every sound and making it echo. Jerry's shoes scuffed rust flakes from the span. The river moved black below, skin rippling in the wind. The town had replaced one of the bulbs last week, but the light was already failing, stuttering to a dim pulse. Her shadow lengthened and snapped apart with each flicker. She pulled one earbud out. At first she thought she heard a bicycle bell, but it was only the metal ping of the bridge cooling in the cold. Then came a softer sound, not on the bridge, not in the water, but somewhere near the riverbank under the far end. It was the hush of steps through wet leaves, then a stillness too deliberate to be the wind. Jerry stopped. The phone camera opened on its own last month and had kept doing it, but tonight she didn't lift it. She only listened. Traffic fell away. Even the buoy went quiet, as if the river were holding its breath. Jerry took one step, then another. The failing bulb above her flared, went dark, flared again. In that brief wash of light she saw the far sidewalk terminate in a smear of fog pouring up from the water like steam. The fog kept its shape against the crosswind. It looked like a person only because she needed it to be anything other than what it was. She said, "Hello?" Her voice came back from the truss in a flat whisper, "Hello." The figure did not answer. The fog held the height of a child, then rose a little, as if standing on a step Jerry couldn't see. Her fingers tightened on the phone. She checked the screen, 2:47 a.m. battery at 18%. A smear of moisture crossed the glass from her breath or a stray mist. When she wiped it, another sound reached her, a small, precise tap, like a knuckle on metal, one tap, then two, from below the rail. She went nearer to the center of the bridge where the great panel is loose. Everyone in town knows it, the way it clacks underfoot. It clacked now as she shifted. Below, the river's surface wrinkled. The tap came again, closer. She crouched, gripping the rail. Her pulse ran in her ears. The phone camera reflected her own face on the dark glass, wide-eyed, pale, and then a lighter shape behind her shoulder, gone as soon as she turned. A car approached from the town side, slowed, then rolled on, tires whispering past. Its headlights blew a white corridor across the bridge and into the fog on the far end. In that glare, something stood just beyond the last lamppost, small and still, the outline too clean for fog alone. Jerry stared until her eyes watered. The car went over the rise and the light died, leaving only the afterimage stamped across her vision. She backed away, thumb hovering over Claire's number. Instead, she opened the voice recorder. The screen showed a red dot and the clock began to count upward. Her throat felt tight. "If anyone finds this," she said, "I'm on the bridge. There's someone here." The word stalled, because saying he would make it human, and it didn't feel like that. The loose grate clicked again. The tapping moved along the metal beneath her feet, steady and patient, as if following her steps from the underside. A breath of colder air ran over her ankles, the kind that belongs to cellars, to water pulled from a well. The hairs on her arms lifted. She took a single step backward. The railing under her palm shivered, not from wind, but as if touched from the other side. The red dot on her screen reached 021. She whispered, "Don't," not sure whether she was speaking to herself or the rail or whatever waited at the far lamppost. The camera in the city's traffic unit caught the rest. Jerry centered in frame, winter coat open, phone raised chest high, a pale flare behind her like a light hitting a mirror that isn't there. The flare grew, then pinched to a thin line, bright enough to burn a white stripe across the image. For 2 frames the line stood at her back like a door crack just wide enough to show a different dark. Then the feed juddered, skipped, and came back with the bridge empty. Her recording stopped at 2:59 a.m. Morning came gray and wet, rain turning the hospital parking lot into a mirror. By 7, Jerry's coworkers realized she hadn't texted or shown up at home. Her car was still parked by the emergency entrance, keys inside the glove box. Claire was the first to call the police. She kept saying, "She doesn't do this. She always messages me when she's home." Detectives arrived before noon. They started from the hospital and traced the path Jerry always walked, down Mill Street, past the diner, over the bridge toward Riverside Apartments. A K9 unit picked up her scent until the middle of the bridge, then nothing. It was as if the trail ended in midair. By dusk, the search expanded to the wooded riverbank. Volunteers in orange vests swept the area with flashlights and drones. Reporters gathered on the bridge, their microphones trembling in the wind. Around 8 p.m., an officer called out that he'd found something, Jerry's canvas bag, soaked but intact, resting on the concrete lip near the start of the bridge. Her ID and wallet were still inside. A few feet away, under the rail, they discovered her phone. The screen was cracked, mud pressed into the speaker holes. When they charged it, it powered on and displayed one unfinished voice recording titled simply Bridge. Duration, 2 minutes and 14 seconds. When the police technician played it in the command tent, the sound filled the cold air, Jerry breathing hard, running or walking fast, the crunch of gravel under her shoes. Then the faint trickle of water. Her voice, close to the mic, trembling. "If someone finds this, he's right in front of me." The rest was a hiss of static, then 2 quick taps, like fingernails on metal, and silence. They replayed it again and again. The voice analysis confirmed it was hers. No other human voice appeared on the file. No car engines, no wind, nothing to suggest a chase or struggle. Just those taps and the sound of the river. The next morning, searchers found the first strange clue. At the far end of the bridge, near the old oak where the riverbank bends, a pair of small children's shoes sat side by side. No footprints led to or from them, though the soil was soft from rain. One officer swore the shoes were dry when he found them, though everything else around was wet. Locals began to gather on the bridge at night, leaving candles and stuffed animals. Some said the place had always been cursed. There were stories, half remembered, about a car crash decades ago, a family that went over the rail, the body of a child never recovered. The older residents avoided talking about it, but when they did, they used the same phrase, "The river keeps what it wants." On the second night, police drones lost signal directly above the center of the bridge. Their feeds glitched, pixelating into static before reconnecting as if nothing had happened. The technician marked the spot and sent divers below, but the current was too strong. The sonar skin showed only debris, metal scraps, a tangle of old chains, nothing else. Claire stayed near the scene every day, pacing the same stretch of pavement Jerry had walked. She told reporters Jerry had complained recently about hearing things on her late shifts, a knock on the hospital's back door when no one was there, the elevator stopping on the wrong floor by itself. She had joked about it, but there had been a shadow under her laugh. By the third day, local media called it the bridge disappearance. Photos of Jerry filled the news feeds, smiling, uniform pressed, hair pulled back tight. Every clip ended with the same audio from her phone, her last words replayed in endless loops. Investigators mapped every second of her route. They collected traffic camera footage, dash cam videos, and cell tower pings. The signal from her phone stopped exactly at 2:47 a.m., halfway across the bridge. Nothing beyond that. Then came the rainstorm. Searchers had to suspend operations, but a small night team stayed to monitor equipment. At 3:12 a.m., one of their body cameras caught something strange, a flicker of movement at the edge of the bridge, too small for an adult, moving fast across the beam before disappearing into fog. The officer who saw it said he thought it was an animal until he heard the sound, two metallic taps, the same rhythm from Jerry's recording. The next morning, they found her hair clip caught on the rail near that spot. It was bent as if twisted between fingers. The town began to change after that. Traffic dropped. The diner closed early. Even the fishermen who lived under the highway moved away, saying the river talked at night. At the police station, one detective kept listening to the recording through headphones, over and over. He swore that after the 15th playback, a second voice appeared faintly in the background, something like a child whispering, "She's here." But when the sound team checked the file, the waveform was identical every time. The official report listed missing person under unusual circumstances. Unofficially, no one believed she'd fallen. There were no marks on the rail, no drag lines, no splash reports from that night. Only the recording, the bag, the shoes, and the silence. A week later, a fisherman radioed that he'd seen a shape standing mid-span in the fog before dawn. "Looked like a woman," he said. "Coat open, hair wet." She was looking down into the water. Patrols rushed there within minutes but found nothing except footprints that ended halfway across, same as before. They closed the bridge for safety inspection. Locals began leaving flowers instead of candles now, because the wind kept blowing the flames out. No one wanted to say the word dead. The chief of police told the press, "We'll keep searching until we find her." But that night, after everyone left, one officer stayed behind to pack the evidence. He replayed the recording one last time. As the final static faded, he heard something he hadn't before, a soft echo behind Jerry's breath, like her own voice repeating from far away, "I'm already home." 2 weeks after Jerry vanished, her apartment was finally opened for a formal search. The landlord had refused at first, saying he didn't want her things touched until there was proof she wasn't coming back. But the police got a warrant after finding new data on her phone, a string of encrypted audio notes backed up to the cloud days before she disappeared. The apartment smelled faintly of antiseptic and lavender detergent. Nothing was out of place. The coffee mug still sat in the sink with a dark ring of dried sugar on its rim. On the nightstand, her smartwatch showed the same frozen time, 2:59 a.m., the minute her recording had stopped. Detective Hall scrolled through the voice memos. The earliest was from a month before the disappearance. Jerry's voice sounded casual at first, tired but calm. "Just keeping notes," she said. "Strange noises lately. Maybe the neighbors. Feels like someone walks the hallway when I get home late." The next file came 3 days later. It happened again. Footsteps. Not above, not beside. Right behind my door. But no one's there when I open it. There were 14 more recordings. In each one, her tone shifted from skepticism to unease. She described knocks that came exactly at 3 a.m., whispers under the stairwell, her reflection in the mirror moving slightly after she turned away. She had started sleeping with the light on. One note stopped everyone cold. It was recorded the evening before her last shift. "I saw him again near the hospital gate. Small figure, maybe a child. He waved. I thought it was someone's kid until I noticed the shoes, soaked, covered in mud, but the ground was dry. He just stood there, and when I looked away for a second, he was gone. The investigators sent the files to a forensic lab for analysis. There were faint ambient sounds behind her voice, low-frequency hums and irregular bursts of static that didn't match her apartment's electrical signature. The technician couldn't identify the source. "It's not power interference," he said. "It's closer to feedback, like something answering her voice." That same night, a local journalist named Martin Cole released an article online titled "The River Takes Its Own." He mentioned Jerry's case alongside several older disappearances from the same stretch of the river. One was from 1998, a 12-year-old boy named Evan who went missing on his walk home from school. His shoes were found near the bridge. The bodies of his parents were later recovered downstream after their car veered off the embankment. Only Evan was never found. Neighbors recalled that Jerry had rented her apartment from Evan's aunt. When police revisited the building's basement, they found old boxes labeled with the family's name. Inside were photographs, grainy, water-damaged, showing a pale boy near the riverbank, smiling, holding a fishing rod. On the back of one photo, in faded ink, someone had written, "He always loved the water." Later that week, Claire visited the station. She asked if she could listen to Jerry's recordings. When she reached the final one, recorded hours before Jerry vanished, she started to cry quietly. "I remember that night," she whispered. "She called me, said she didn't feel safe walking alone. I told her I'd pick her up after my shift. She laughed and said, 'No, it's fine. I think he just wants me to listen.' I thought she meant some patient from work." The officers exchanged glances. Claire didn't notice. She stared at the screen, replaying the recording again and again. "Listen," she said finally. After she says listen, there's a voice. Right there. She turned up the volume. Under Jerry's words, faint but distinct, a small child's voice murmured something rhythmic. Slowed down, it formed a sentence, "You said you'd come back." The sound analysis confirmed it wasn't an echo. It was layered underneath her voice, recorded simultaneously. That evening, the police collected Jerry's laptop from her apartment. In the files they found an unfinished journal entry dated November 14, 11:48 p.m. the night before she disappeared. The entry read, "Something's wrong with the bridge. Every time I cross it, I feel him there. Like the air folds differently. I tried not to look, but tonight he said my name. It came from under the bridge, not across it. I swear I heard it with my own ears. Evan. That's what he said his name was." The investigation deepened. Local archives showed the boy's body had never been found, but there were unconfirmed reports of sightings over the years, a small figure standing near the river at night, calling out to people by name, even names of those who'd never met him. The police chief wanted to keep it quiet, fearing panic, but by then half the town already knew. Parents forbade their children from walking near the river. People began posting videos claiming to hear whispers in the mist. Most were hoaxes, but one clip, recorded by a driver passing the bridge at 3 a.m., caught something chilling, a figure at the rail, pale and motionless, the hem of a nurse's coat fluttering in the wind. When the footage was enhanced, the figure's reflection appeared in the water, but the bridge itself was empty. That night, Detective Hall sat alone in his office reviewing the case files. Jerry's final memo still played through the speakers. "He said I promised," her voice whispered. Then came the faint sound of water dripping, though the file should have ended. The audio kept looping even after he closed the program. He pulled off his headphones. The office was silent. Only the faint hum of the radiator. Then, 3 soft taps against the window pane behind him. He turned quickly, heart hammering. The glass was wet from condensation, and through it he saw the blurred shape of a handprint. Small. Like a child's. He froze, staring, until the mark began to fade, as if the moisture itself were being pulled back into the night air. He replayed the file again to confirm what he heard. This time, bet. The bridge was closed 2 weeks later, officially for structural inspection, though everyone in town knew it had nothing to do with cracks or rust. Patrol cars blocked both ends, but that didn't stop people from coming at night. Some left flowers. Others came to listen. They said if you stood on the middle span between 2:40 and 3 a.m., you could hear her voice over the water, soft, broken, calling for help. On December 8th, at 2:56 a.m., a truck driver radioed that he'd seen a young woman standing alone in the fog near the bridge's midpoint. Looked like she was soaking wet, he said. She was just staring down into the water, not moving. By the time police arrived, the bridge was empty. But when they swept the walkway with flashlights, they saw the faint outline of a shoe print, a woman's, size 6, and a single trail of water drops leading to the railing. The next morning, investigators returned. The rain had washed away most traces, except for a series of fingerprints left on the steel rail. They belonged to Jerry. Forensic analysis showed they were fresh, left no more than 12 hours earlier. That finding wasn't in the public report. It was shared only among the small task force still working the case. That same day, Officer Ramirez, who'd been among the first to search the river, requested to visit the bridge one more time. "I just need to see it again," he told his partner. He had been restless since the case began, nightmares, voices, the sound of tapping that followed him home. His partner, Tom, reluctantly agreed to join him. They went after midnight, walking slowly through the mist, flashlights slicing through the white air. Ramirez stopped at the center, the same spot where Jerry's signal had vanished. He knelt to check the loose metal grate. "Right here," he said. "This is where the signal died." The radio on his shoulder hissed with static. Tom tapped it, thinking the frequency had shifted, but the sound didn't stop. It pulsed in short bursts, 3 quick taps, then silence. Ramirez straightened up, his face pale. "That sound. It's the same pattern from her recording." Then, from beneath the bridge, came the unmistakable echo of water moving against metal beams, slow, rhythmic, like someone pacing below their feet. Tom leaned over the edge, shining his light down. The beam caught the surface of the river, black and mirror flat. For a moment he saw nothing. Then, a few meters downstream, something pale surfaced, drifting just beneath the reflection of the bridge lights. "Jesus," Tom whispered. "It's her." Ramirez didn't answer. He was staring at the far end of the bridge where a small shape stood in the fog, perfectly still. It looked like a child, short, thin, hair slicked to the forehead. The beam of his flashlight trembled as he raised it. The shape didn't move. It only tilted its head slightly, as if studying them. "Hey!" Ramirez called out. The sound echoed back and forth across the river. When the echo faded, a small voice replied, barely audible, "You came back." Tom swore under his breath, stumbling backward. Ramirez took a hesitant step forward. "Evan," he said quietly, the name trembling on his tongue. The shape twitched, its outline wavering with the mist. Then it turned, slowly, and began to walk toward the edge. Before either of them could react, it stepped into the fog and disappeared. They ran to the spot, but there was nothing there, only a cold draft rising from below. The railing was wet, and on the steel beam they found the imprint of a child's hand, fresh and dripping. The mark was smaller than an adult's palm and pressed deep enough to leave a streak of moisture running down the metal. Both men backed away, shaken. Ramirez was breathing hard, muttering that he had to follow. Tom grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the patrol car. The radio on Ramirez's chest crackled again. This time, through the static, came Jerry's voice, faint and distant, "You shouldn't have come here." The words were clear. Both men froze. Then the radio went dead. They left the bridge without another word. At sunrise, dispatch received a call from Tom. Ramirez hadn't gone home. His car was still parked near the barricade. The team found his flashlight lying in the center of the bridge, still on. His radio was discovered by the waterline hours later, half buried in the mud. The recording on it lasted 23 seconds. It began with heavy breathing, the sound of footsteps on metal, then Jerry's voice again, louder this time, pleading, "Please, not again. Not this way." After that, the tape ended in a splash. Divers searched the river for 2 days. They found nothing. The department sealed the area completely after that. No one was allowed on the bridge, not even maintenance crews. Still, people kept coming. They left candles, old toys, and photographs of loved ones who'd gone missing over the years. Some swore the photos were moved by morning, turned face down, as if someone had touched them. Reporters pressed for answers, but the official statement remained the same: search efforts continue. Privately, officers avoided the night shifts near the river. Dispatchers said that every few nights, around the same hour Jerry disappeared, their radio frequencies picked up an open channel broadcasting faint static. When they amplified it, they could hear 2 overlapping voices, a woman whispering and a child replying. In January, the police chief ordered the bridge dismantled. But on the night before demolition began, one of the engineers quit after walking the site alone. He told his supervisor he heard crying under the structure, the kind that echoed like water running through pipes. When he shone his flashlight down, he saw 2 silhouettes reflected in the river, one small, one taller, standing side by side, motionless. The report filed that morning was brief: subject resigned due to stress. The bridge remained standing. And though it was now sealed behind a chain-link fence, drivers passing by at night said they could still see faint lights moving across the span. Some said they looked like flashlights. Others said they looked like phones. A month passed. The snow came early, covering the town in silence thick enough to swallow every sound but the river's slow breath. The bridge was still closed, locked behind wire fencing and warning signs, but the current kept moving beneath the ice. People said that even in the dead of winter, you could hear tapping under the frozen surface, like something trapped and trying to get out. Then, on January 14th, a fisherman named Harris was checking his nets downstream when his line caught on something heavy. He tugged, thinking it was debris, but when the weight broke free, a muddy object bobbed to the surface, a phone, coated in silt and wrapped in a torn hospital mask. It was Jerry's. The police confirmed the serial number that afternoon. The data chip was damaged, but one file survived, saved automatically in the cloud. Its timestamp, 2:57 a.m., the night she vanished. When they played the video, the room went silent. The camera shook as Jerry walked, her flashlight beams slicing through the dark. "It's late," she whispered. "I should have called Claire." The sound of her breathing filled the speaker, fast and shallow. The bridge's steel grated under her shoes. Wind howled through the trusses. Then came the first faint voice, a child's, calling from the distance. "Jerry." She turned, the camera jerking toward the fog behind her. "Who's there?" she asked, voice trembling. "Do you need help?" "Nothing. Only the tap of dripping water." She kept recording, walking toward the middle span. "If someone finds this," she murmured, "I'm on the bridge. There's someone here." The flashlight beam caught a shape in the mist ahead, small, barely the height of her waist. A boy in drenched clothes, hair slicked to his forehead, eyes open too wide. Jerry lowered the camera slightly. "Are you hurt?" she asked. The boy didn't answer. He tilted his head. Then, in a voice too steady for his size, he said, "You promised you'd come back." Jerry froze. "What did you say?" "You promised." The child stepped closer. Water dripped from his sleeves. "You left me in the dark. You said you'd come back for me." Her voice cracked. "No, I don't know you." He interrupted her. "You do." He pointed toward the river. "You heard me every night." The camera swayed as she backed away, her shoes scraping metal. The flashlight beam flickered, catching his face again. His skin looked gray-blue, his eyes glassy, reflecting the light like mirrors. "Please," she whispered. "You're not real." The boy took one more step. "I waited," he said softly. "Now it's your turn." The wind rose suddenly, howling through the bridge. The camera caught the railing as she stumbled. Something unseen struck the metal beside her, 3 hard taps, echoing deep below. Then the beam swung wildly, showing the empty walkway, the fog, and finally the black river beneath. Jerry screamed. The sound wasn't of terror alone, it was confusion, a desperate realization that whatever stood before her wasn't a ghost of the dead but something older, colder, that wore the memory of the child like a mask. The camera tilted toward the water. In the reflection below, both figures were visible, Jerry standing at the rail and the boy beside her. But in the reflection, it wasn't Jerry's face that looked back. It was the boy's, pale and still, staring up. The last seconds of the recording showed Jerry stepping backward toward the edge, whispering, "I'm sorry." The boy's voice answered quietly, "Now we go home." The image blurred, then plunged downward, and the screen filled with rushing black. The file ended there. The police released a formal report 2 weeks later. They confirmed the discovery of human remains near a bend in the river 5 kilometers downstream. Dental records matched Jerry Cole. The coroner stated the cause of death as accidental drowning. The case was marked closed. But locals knew better. That spring, when the ice melted, people began hearing it again, the tapping under the bridge that wasn't there anymore. Kids said if you stood near the river after midnight, you could hear 2 voices whispering from the water, one low and tired, the other small and patient. Some claimed they saw lights moving beneath the surface, like phones or flashlights. Claire moved away that year. She refused to talk about what she'd heard when the police let her listen to the recovered recording. The only thing she said, once, to a reporter who caught her outside her new job, was this: the voice on that video wasn't just Jerry. There were 2 of her. By summer, the town council demolished what remained of the bridge. They dumped the steel into the quarry outside town. But even there, guards later complained of hearing faint knocking from the water pit at night, 3 short taps, followed by a pause, as though someone were testing if anyone was still listening. The file of Jerry's final recording was sealed, but a copy leaked online for a few days before being taken down. Those who heard it said the last few seconds contained something new, an echo of footsteps and then a soft voice whispering, "I made it home." And after that, the sound of quiet breathing. Not underwater. Not in pain. Just breathing.